Okay, so let's continue refining our character. And the way we're going to start out here is by working with some of these edges that we cut into the character earlier, and evening them out a little bit because they're kind of bunched together. I mentioned that in the last video, so let's go ahead and start working on that. And the easiest way to do it really is simply by selecting these vertices on the edges and just one by one kind of pulling them out, because we want to take control. A lot of times, we all want to sort of work with this stuff. In fact, I think it's going to actually be easier in the perspective view, perhaps. Well, let's do some of this part in this viewport here. It's going to be actually easier to do some of this in the viewport because it's so straightforward with the gizmo for the move tool here, just going straight with the viewport. So we're just going to go down one row of edges, okay? And you can see all I'm really doing is just kind of evenly spacing it between this edge and then in the front here, front part, just to make it a little bit more effective. Okay, let's work our way back up. In fact, I'm going to grab, these actually seem okay for right now. So what I'm going to do is, I think, is grab maybe these and move them over just a little bit here. And the idea is that if they're evenly spaced, then the model is just going to look better. It's going to animate better. It doesn't mean that everything needs to be evenly spaced. Sometimes it absolutely can't be and shouldn't be because of the nature of the way we want the edges to flow to create a certain shape on the character. But in the case of, at least for right now, like the legs here, it's pretty straightforward. We want to start off with them being fairly evenly spaced, and that way when we do start to manipulate them, we're taking control of exactly what we want to change here. And so I'm going to grab on the side here as well. Okay, same thing here. Do that. And actually, these probably could be moved over just a little bit as well, because they're part of that. Oops, this one. Okay, good. Got that guy going here. Now these are going to be a problem, so I'm going to actually, one of the things I recommend not doing most of the time is rotating in your orthographic viewports, but in this case, it's actually okay. It's actually not a bad idea, because the gizmo, like I said, is going in a nice straight direction, and we're in an orthographic viewport. We don't have lines of projection that are going to fool our eyes so much. And just go up, and I think that should probably do it for now. Let's grab this one perhaps and pull it just a little bit this way, just a little bit. And maybe this one as well. Pull it that way just a little bit. And let's grab this one. Move it over so it's more evenly spaced. So that's going to work out better. It's going to work out a lot better. Okay, the other thing that we're going to need to do is let's go back to our left view. So all I have to do is hit the L key, and I'm back on the actual left view for the orthographic view. Just in case I haven't talked about this before, the left view and the front view are orthographic views, but they're specific orthographic views. They're specifically right in the front and right in the left. But if I was to rotate this left view, as I did a minute ago, you may or may not have noticed that it changed its name from left view to orthographic. That means it's a generic orthographic viewport now because I rotated it. It's not specifically a left viewport, but still an orthographic viewport, even if it says left or front or top or whatever. Okay. Or back or bottom or whatever. Okay, so the other thing that we need to also work on is going to be the arms. Now that's going to be very difficult to do because we're going to be going all the way around the arm. So we're going to do, in the orthographic view. So we're going to go ahead and do that in the perspective view. Let's get with that. So I'm going to go ahead and maximize the perspective view. I'm going to click down here in this tiny little sliver where the perspective view is, and just hit and maximize the viewport by clicking on this button down here, the viewport area buttons, maximize viewport, and now we're in the perspective view. So let's go in here and work on the arms a little bit, because we cut a lot of edges, some edges in here, and a bunch of them are really bunched up. We're going to start rounding our character off a little bit pretty quick here as well. But we need to work with some of these edges a little bit first. And some of the stuff we're going to need to do is move some of these edges a little bit more in a just a better position. And I'm going to grab this, kind of pull them down, and in the process it's going to start rounding out this arm a little bit, but it's also mostly what we're doing right here is just sort of evening out the edges. Now I want you to notice that I'm working in these little planes for in this case, the X and the Z axis. That gives me the option of being able to not just pull in one direction, but in two different, in different directions on that shared axis. Get those, make sure I don't have anything else. For right now, this is a good time to turn on ignore back facing. I addressed that in one of the earlier videos, that sometimes you want ignore back facing turned on, because if I'm selecting vertices here, I don't necessarily want to select them on the torso. I just want to select them on the sleeve here. So that's kind of important to understand. So I'm pulling those down. It's a shirt sleeve, so it's not going to be perfectly round or anything, but we do want to even things out a little bit as far as the vertices are concerned. So that they're, and see, I know that there's a vertex there because there's edges crossing. Even though I can't see it with the mesh smooth turned on, I know it's there. And for right now, I just want to leave the mesh smooth turned on. And just kind of work with that. By working on that XZ plane for right, the YZ plane. I said XZ earlier. I meant YZ. The YZ plane, I'm able to more accurately move these without going in some funky direction. Okay. Now we're going to round the character off a little bit more later on, but I wanted just to make sure that these were evenly spaced a bit more. So let's get the arm, because the arm is very flat in the back here, and that's just wrong. So we're going to take some of these vertices and just kind of move them over like that. Okay. And I'm sort of going to start rounding off a little bit here, just because I'm shaping this a little bit by moving the vertices around. I may as well take care of this really flat area right here as I'm spacing these out. So that just seems like a good use of my time right now as I'm working on this. Okay, and then that should be okay up inside there for now. And we're actually going to make sort of an elbow on our character a little later, but not yet. Don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I'm sure I've talked about this already, but just as with drawing or working with anything sculpting in clay or something, you start large and don't worry about detail until after you are, until you're sort of into that stage where you've got it, worked out the larger areas and the stuff that's a bit complex. I'm going to use this axis now and pull that down a little bit. And I'm watching the edges. I mentioned that in an earlier video, that when I'm moving these vertices around, I'm watching the edges. If the edges, if you just focus on the vertices, you might end up with something where the vertex is going down and the edges are going in these wonky directions and everything. And we don't want that. We want a fairly even flow of edges most of the time. Not always, because sometimes we need for them to dramatically change directions in order to get the shape that we're after. But when we're dealing with something that's fairly roundish, like the arm, and we are going to work on some of that detail stuff a little later, then we want to make sure that those edges are not going in some funky direction like that or whatever, but we want them to go like this. So you almost pay more attention to the edges than anything when you're actually moving these vertices around. It's very important. Do that way. Okay, now we're starting to get this rounded off a little bit, as well as getting these vertices sort of even more evenly spaced. See how that arm's starting to look a little bit more round and a little less boxy and square like it was before? We're going to do that whole thing to that thing as well, to the whole body, I should say, not that whole thing, but do the same approach to the entire body. Okay, so that helps a bit. That looks better. See, the edge is more evenly spaced, more logical. And it's not just about logic, it's more beautiful, and it's also just going to work a whole lot better for making our character look natural. All right, so we're going to come back and really shape out this body in a little bit here, but we're going to go ahead and start cutting some edges going this way on the head, so we have a little bit more to work with. Just as we do going this way, we have a lot of edges going this way, but we only have the corners and then one in the middle on the side. In the front, we only have just the one in the corner and the one in the middle, just as in this. So we're going to have to cut some edges this way, and we're going to cut some edges this way. So we can begin rounding this off more accurately, and which would be virtually impossible to do with the small amount of detail that we have right now. So the best place to start when you're doing this, in the middle like this, is to start at that edge that is being shared by the symmetry modifier. Okay, so get my cut tool, and I'm going to work my way down to where, I'm going to turn off Mesh Smooth for right now because it's a lot easier to work with the cut tool with Mesh Smooth turned off. And I'm going to work my way down to the neck area, okay? And this is one of those, well, you'll see when we get there. I'll talk about it when we get there. Let's go ahead and start cutting. So on an edge, go here, and I can go all the way down. When it's nice and straight like that, you can go all the way down. Right click to kind of get out of there just for a second. And then what I want to do, there's a couple of ways that I can handle this. I could stop it right here, but I think a better place to stop this is going to be for me to cut to this edge right here, and then cut down into this neck area here, and sort of go, from here to here, to that. And so we're going to end up with a triangle. Now, I'll probably be able to fix that and work that out later on. So like I said, sometimes it's okay to have some triangles. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and cut another going this way. And notice I'm keeping them even because I have that control right now. So I'm going to go right down to this edge right here, keeping them fairly even. Right click to kind of get out of it for a second so that I can go back down here. And then I'm going to go from here to here, and right click so I can rotate around and zoom in maybe a little bit and kind of see where I want to go. I think I might just try going to the same area right here. It's a real easy thing to change that and fix it so that it so if I decide I want to make this something other than the way it is right now. We have all these two triangles right next to each other. We have four-sided polygons on either side, and that's all good. Okay, for now. And like I said, we can adjust that, change that later. We're going to have to do the same kind of a thing for now. And while you're doing these kinds of things, where I'm making those triangles, obviously you can hear it by the way that I'm speaking about this, that I'm thinking ahead to how I'm going to handle this later on, or just thinking about the fact that I'm going to need to do something to handle this later on. So I got to zoom in here so I can start. I'm going to start right back here. It's going to end up creating a triangle, right? There we go. I think I can get this. And I'm going to go right up. Whatever, that's fine. Okay, there we go. Oh, okay, good. That worked out pretty good. I didn't expect that to snap to there very nicely, but it really did. So that's good. I can just go all the way up to the top here now. Go around to the very top of the head so I can see what I'm doing there. Go from here all the way to here, the front, top, rotate around, back down. Kind of get it evenly spaced here somewhat. And I'm going to go down to here. And what I'm doing is I'm left clicking and I'm right clicking so that I don't accidentally cut someplace where I don't want to. Sort of like with the quick slice tool, but obviously more controlled. Yep. Then we're going to go, let's just go to the middle. That'll be fine. Okay, So now we have the head. Now let's turn the mesh smooth back on. And the head looks very boxy, you know, and that's part of the reason why it looks boxy is because remember how it looked pretty round when there weren't hardly any polygons? That's because the mesh smooth was averaging out the polygons that were with edges that were really far apart. Well, now the edges are closer together, and so it's rounding off just this part right here. So what we're going to end up having to do with this new detail that we have cut in here is to begin shaping this out a little bit better. So let's start by turning off Mesh Smooth and just taking a look at what we need to work on here. We're going to end up cutting some edges around the outside of the neck area right here where the collar of the t-shirt is going to be, so that we can manipulate the collar of the t-shirt in a similar way that we manipulated the shirt sleeves and the bottom of the shirt, in just a little bit. But for right now, I'm going to go back up to the, minimize this, I'm going to go back to our left and front views so that we can actually sort of start using these extra edges and stuff to sort of shape out our face, and our head, not our face, but our head a little bit here. So let's start by, I'm going to start down here, and I'm going to make sure that we're just working with, whoops, I still have the cut tool going on here, not good. Turn that off, there we go. So I'm going to get my move tool, make a selection, and I'm going to just sort of shape this out so it is sort of creating a chin area roughly, very, very roughly. I'm not worried about the nose or anything at all right now because we're going to end up extruding details like that out and creating that detail later on. We don't want to think about detail right now as maybe as tempting as it might seem to be, you know. And so as I'm pulling these vertices in, I have to sort of think about, you know, maybe moving these over a little bit so that they're a little bit more evenly spaced. So I'm taking this, moving this over, just as I did with the torso, you know, and so forth. I'm not worried about the hair right now either. And the reason why I'm not worried about the hair is because we're going to create the hair differently than what we're doing right now in just a little, well, several videos from now. But all we're doing right now is just kind of creating the basic cranium area of the character. Getting it shaped out roughly. Okay, so that's pretty good there. Now let's work on the front here. In fact, I think I'm going to maximize the front viewport here so I can see what I'm doing a little bit better. This way you take advantage of this space. Now, the drawing looks like it's kind of cropped a little bit on the top here, but that's not really as big a deal as you might think. All I want to do here is, you know, is just sort of shape this out so it's roughly the shape of a face, you know, a head, I should say. And so we're going to need to, in fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn Mesh Smooth off for a second. I think it'll be easier to see where I'm going with this for now with Mesh Smooth off. And we'll turn Mesh Smooth back on and then do some refinement in just a bit. But we need to sort of get this going here with Mesh Smooth turned off. And this is just barely roughing this out a bit. We're not really trying to get any detail work done here or whatever. And notice all these vertices that are at an angle here. Well, that's because the head is coming out at an angle from the side view. So I'm going to get my fence selection, okay, tool again, so that I can make selections. See, this is the thing. I know that these are all rows of vertices going. Oh, didn't get them. Oh, you know, I have ignore back facing turned on. That's the reason why I noticed that worked just the way it was supposed to. With ignore back facing turned on, I can't select vertices that are on the opposite side of a polygon. See what I'm saying? It only selected the one in the front. But when I turn ignore back facing off, which is what I need for the time being, now I'll be able to select these vertices in the entire row, even on the opposite side of the polygon. And all I'm really trying to do right now is just sort of move all of those so that I can shape this out a bit. And I'm not getting too picky about this. I'm really just sort of, you know, doing a rough job of this right now because this is a very rough, you know, part of it. It could be a lot more precise refining right now. This is very rough refining. It almost sounds like a oxymoron, but it's the truth. It's kind of a rough refining right now. Pull that up just a little bit. Now I'm going to select these individually, kind of pull these over. And then when we get into the perspective view to work on this stuff, it's going to be, you know, just a lot more accurate when we get into the perspective view and working there almost exclusively. Okay, so for now, I think we're in pretty good shape. So let's take a look and see. This looks pretty much the same in the side view. Let's take a look at how it looks in the perspective view now. So once again, I'm going to maximize it because we're going to start working a lot in the perspective view. So click on the perspective view, and then maximize that viewport. And let's take a look at how we're doing. Not too bad. Now, that's good. So we got it started. You'll notice there's some kind of wonky things going on right here, but that's what I was saying. It's kind of rough, but it's got the general shape, and we're starting to get there. Okay? Now, this is where it starts to get interesting when you start worrying about detail. That's why we can't worry about detail right now. We have the general shape of our character, and that's what the template was for. Now what we need to do is round our character off so it's obviously not going to be boxy like this. So we want to make sure that it has that natural humanoid shape. Okay. So what we're going to do here is turn on Mesh Smooth so we can really see how it's rounding off as we're working. And in fact, you know, I'm going to go ahead and get out of vertex mode here for a second. I'm going to select my unfreeze all, and I'm going to select my templates just for the moment because I want to hide them so that they're not in my way as I'm rotating around, because that's going to start getting annoying. So right click and hide selections. Whoop, wrong one. Undo. Unhide all for the time minute. There we go. Let's try this. Got these guys selected. I have him selected too. So let's select this and select this. Click this and say hide selection. There we go. That's more like it. All right. Now I can work on this guy and see what I'm doing. I don't need to have edge faces on anymore because I've got this cage here, and the edge faces is just going to be confusing. It's just way too many edges that we don't need to see. All we need to see is the end result of what we're working on here. So I'm going to start with a real easy area right here. It's real obvious that he has this kind of like really square, funky looking thing going on in his chest right here. So all that has to happen here is to select that. And what we're going to be doing is looking at him from this kind of perspective a lot, because that's where you can really see the squareness. And so I'm going to be pulling that in, and then I'm going to select this vertex here, and I'm going to pull that out a little bit. All right? Work my way around a little bit. And once again, I want to focus on those edges. So watch what happens. I know that there's a vertex in there someplace, right? All I have to do is follow the edge until my cursor changes and I go, oh, I'm over a vertex. That's how you do it. And then I can pull this out a little bit. Okay. And then I can push this in a little bit, because that's just kind of like a very squarish area there. In fact, this could go in a little bit more, and perhaps over this direction. Okay, maybe even down a little bit. All right. Grab that little corner there, move that in a little bit more. Okay. Now, in addition to moving these in, I can move some of these out there in the flat area. But remember, when we were working in the orthographic viewports, we were actually shaping this based on what we saw. So these should be pretty accurate. You know, it's really this corner areas here that really need to be pulled in a lot. So I'm going to start by just doing that. You see what I'm doing? I'm grabbing this Y and X axis plane and pulling it in at a diagonal. And then I'm going to select a whole bunch of these down here. Let's go down here and get a better selection of these. In fact, I'm going to go back to my marquee selection, rectangular marquee selection tool, so it's easy to make selections like that. And move this in as well. See how that's rounding up? It's really obvious around the bottom here. And what we want to do is we want to focus on a row of edges going in a direction. Like these edges are all going in the same direction. I wanted to get those done first. Okay? And look at how much more round and natural it's looking already. Okay? Now these edges right here, I can't use the plane because I never, ever, ever want to move these any direction on the x-axis. So I only want to move these out a little bit on the y-axis. So I'm going to move these out a little bit here on the y-axis. And by just doing it on the y-axis, I'm not in danger of doing something like, well, I'll show you, of doing something like this. That's not good. But that's the easy thing to fix. My character's on perfectly set on the zeros axis, x-axis for the world. And so if I change that, select that x dimension down there and hit 0, back, it's fixed. Okay? So just keep that in mind. There's nothing to panic about. Just want to avoid doing it. So move that out a little bit. Move this out just a little bit. I do want that posture, though. I don't want to really pull his chest out too much because he's meant to be a skinny little kid, right? You know, I pulled this out, and I think I really need to pull this back in a little bit more like that so I can pull this in. So I have that flow of edges kind of going in a more natural direction. Yeah, that's not too bad. But this needs to be pulled in on the y-axis in this direction. So it's going to come more towards his neck, which is much more natural. Same thing here. Okay, see how we're getting this going here? Grab this, move this in more. Okay, now I think I could probably pull this down just a little bit and try to keep these edges flowing a little more naturally. See, I don't just pull this way down and just leave it and kind of go, that strong angle right there is okay, because really it's not. It's going to make it just look less natural when it's you know, when we start really working on this a little bit more in detail. So pull these out. All right, now let's try to get these sleeves sort of rounded. Now the sleeve's not too bad, but I can tell you that the shoulders could be in this area right here. Could be probably pulled out a little bit here, rounded off. We don't want him to look too muscular. Once again, like I said, he's a skinny little kid. Look kind of like I was when I was probably 16 or something. And pull this out a little bit. Pull it down, pull it out. Pull this down just a little bit. Well, no, I want that to be there a little bit for the shoulder area. But that means that this needs to come up just a little bit. So I'm just rounding this off in a natural way. Now, it doesn't hurt to have a little experience with, you know, human anatomy and just the natural way that a character is built. You know, that a humanoid character is built. But, you know, you just use your common sense and recognize the fact that, you know, you're trying to create a, you know, it's certainly a cartoon character. Now this could be pulled in quite a bit. That one's really out there. There we go. Try to create a little bit more natural edge flow there. Okay, now let's work the back a little bit. I did the front. Let's work on this back area here. Pull that inward. Once again, whoops. Once again, we're trying to just take off these corners that shouldn't be corners at all, because he's not square. He's not meant to be square. He's too cool to be square, right? Those in, these in, on that diagonal. Make sure I'm selecting all the ones here. It wouldn't hurt to look underneath that shirt to make sure I didn't miss some vertices that I should have gotten earlier on. So I'll do that as well. So you can see he's still kind of flat looking on the side a little bit. Still got a little bit of a boxy look to him. So it wouldn't hurt to maybe pull some of these out just a little bit, make his shirt a little baggier, which is okay, you know. I think that'll look pretty natural. And like I said, I know that there's a vertex there because I know there's a row of edges going this way and there's a row of edges going that way. And even though I couldn't see it with Mesh Smooth on, I know it's there. And so that's the reason why I'm manipulating that way. You have to be very careful that when you're selecting these vertices, that you're not accidentally selecting something. I knew that was going to happen. That's the reason why I want to show you here and here. You have to be careful that you're just selecting the vertices that you need. So make sure you rotate your character in the correct direction so you get that curve. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the back here that I did for the front. I'm only going to pull it out a little bit on the y-axis. Not too much in that area there. That's kind of like his waist area, the lower back, so the small of the back, so to speak. I want to kind of make his shoulders a little bit more rounded, so I think I'm going to need to pull this down a bit here. It's a little more natural, although it could probably come out just a little bit here that way. Now, obviously, I'm not looking at any kind of a reference when I'm doing this, so you guys need to follow my lead here. It's very important that you know, if you have the knack for, moving, for what a character should look like, then great. You're gonna be in great shape. But the likelihood is that most of you probably aren't as familiar with doing stuff like this. And that what you really want to do is really follow my lead and make sure that I got to ignore back facing turned off, and I want that turned on so I don't accidentally select something on the opposite side here. Okay, now once again, I know that there's a vertex in here because an edge is going this direction. I know there's one going this way, and so I can just go in there and select that edge, pull that sleeve out a little bit. See, I think I could probably push that one in just a bit. But I'm just trying to create this natural flow of this that's going to shape the character a little more naturally. And then pretty soon what I'm going to start doing is referencing my concept drawing, just to give me a little bit better feel, perhaps, for how I should be moving some of this stuff around. So I'm just kind of sort of focusing on the flow of edges, okay, as I mentioned before, and an area I want to see as I'm rotating around. And you notice, as I was talking about in one of the previous videos, that we want to make sure. See, I missed some of these underneath here. I should have got them earlier. The rest of these seem okay. I guess I did all right with those. But we want to keep these, this sleeve pretty tight, so that it looks like there's an edge there. I think I got a vertex poking through there from the other side, so I'm going to grab that guy and push him back in again. There we go. Don't want that sticking out. Don't want any vertices coming through the other side. If I turn mesh smooth off, it's going to be a little bit more obvious. So perhaps I should just do that and just kind of move this down now. Yep, you want to keep these, and this is where we were working before, and you know how tedious that was. That was a bit of a challenge, but doesn't mean we can't keep refining things and making them better. Okay, so we'll zoom out a little bit and kind of see how he's coming along. I got a little vertex issue going on right here, it looks to me like. Let's select this guy. There's something going on there. You want to fix that. That guy is coming all the way through from the other side of the shirt. Not a good thing. Got to be careful about that. Now we're going to need to work on the legs a bit. Let's not get too fixated on one area. We can always come back to it, but you can see that, especially if you turn mesh smooth on, our character in the upper part of the torso here is coming together pretty good. Could probably still be adjusted, but look at those legs. Very blocky. Looks like he's Gumby or something like that. I don't know if you guys even know about Gumby. It's an animated character on TV using claymation way back in the day when I was a kid. Or actually, it was probably more like when I was a teenager, but I remember Gumby. All right, so remember what we're going to end up with here is going to be pants and these shoes. And look at how square these shoes are. So we're definitely going to need to round these shoes off and stuff. I don't want to get too detailed with that because I'm going to use a reference to make sure I'm getting it right, you know, pretty soon. But it's coming along. It's starting to look like a real boy, even if he's not Pinocchio. All right. So let's go down here to the legs and let's start working on those. Now, probably the best way to handle the legs is to do kind of just the opposite of what we're doing. Was we look at it from the bottom because it's going to be hard to see the shape of the legs from the top because of the shirt kind of spilling over the top here. But what we want to do with this, just as we did with the, you know, with the torso, is we just want to pull these edges in. We're going to focus on an area here. And I'm using that plane for the XY axis here. Just pulling it in. All the way down. And that was one of the main reasons why we evened out these edges here, so that when we started working on this way, now this part right here is going to be a little interesting because we don't want that to go in too much because it's right there where the shoe is. Okay, so we'll probably end up adding some more edges in here because we're going to need them to shape out this pants leg. And we want it to look like jeans. We don't want it to look like it's some big stiff kind of thing going on here. So now I think I can go with this part and move this in a little bit. The same thing here, move this in a little bit more here. Move that in a little bit. Because remember, we're looking at a flow of edges. See how the edges are going from a very, look at the back. Look at the angle of the edges go boink, and it turns, it makes a sharp left turn there. Boom, boom, or right turn, or whatever, however you want to look at it. But now these are starting to turn around, and that's exactly what we're after here. This is really not a difficult process doing this once you get the hang of it. It's just, you know, obviously like anything that we're doing with this stuff is a bit tedious. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit it. But, you know, I'll also admit that I really enjoy it too. I kind of kid the students sometimes when they're really struggling with something, and I go in to help them fix a little problem with their modeling if they can't figure out what to do. And I'll just be going to town on it, and I'm just going, you know, this is really sort of therapeutic for me. And it kind of is. I mean, I enjoy this kind of a puzzle. This is a visual puzzle, you know. I mean, an actual useful visual puzzle. So if you like to do this kind of stuff, it's going to be a lot easier on you. And if you can learn to like it, if you don't love it just yet, you know, it's going to be a lot easier on you also. Now I'm going to take this whole heel of the shoe and pants and everything and round that off right there just to get that taken care of. And I'm going to do the same thing over here in the front as well. Just shape this so it's a lot more like a shoe. Now we want his feet to be kind of big because, again, it's a cartoon character, and so we're not trying to create a real natural character. We want it to have a little bit of a cartoon, distorted kind of like look to it. However, some of this stuff needs to be, you know, shaped inwards a little bit differently. Whoops, wrong one. Let's grab the right vertex here. That's the one I meant to get. Move that over a little bit. Move this one just over a little bit. There we go. Now we need. I'm going to turn off the symmetry modifier so I can get to the inside this leg here. Nice thing about the symmetry modifier, you can turn it off and let's do this heel part here first, though. Round that off a bit. Okay, and I'm going to work my way up the leg. Okay. See how I've got this one vertex is kind of poking out here a little bit, but probably should move that in just a little bit here. There we go. Now I'm going to work my way up this back corner of the leg here. And just notice the flow of edges here. Notice how, let me move this out just a little bit. Notice how they're going in a more round direction. I've got to go this way a little bit also. Selecting the wrong vertex there. There we go. Got it. Okay, let's get this here. Move this over just a little bit. Make that more round. Okay, this can actually go back in just a little bit because it's sort of the back of the knee. And this could probably start to come out just a little bit this way. Round that off. Alright, now we're getting some legs here. Now let's get the front part here. Front inside part. Haven't done that yet. Once again, you can see that row of edges. You can see how they're kind of moving at more of a curve around the leg instead of this sharp corner that we have going on right here. We don't want that. And notice I'm constantly moving around. Constantly. Now I have to be careful about this one. Okay, so watch what happens if I turn symmetry on, and if I had moved this one over going, oh, I need to round that off too. Well, suddenly it has a big hole in his crotch. That would be embarrassing, wouldn't it? So undo that. All right, there we go. Boardroom malfunction. All right, there we go. Now, the butt area here, I know there's an edge right there. This isn't such a bad thing for us to sort of like think about shaping out natural anatomical things. Uh-oh, undo. I got the wrong vertex. Let's grab that one. There we go. Nope, where'd that vertex go? I'm going to turn off Mesh Smooth for a second so I can find it. There we go. And then what I want to do is pull this out on the y-axis a little bit. Pull that out maybe a little bit more. And then, that's fine. That'll be fine. Turn Mesh Smooth back on. We're probably going to want to make another cut in here someplace too, so that we can adjust the shape of this. It doesn't look that bad considering that he's you know, it's essentially has jeans on, say. And now this is very smooth looking, very doughboy looking right now. And that's the other thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to make some alterations to this by making some cuts that will allow us to, some triangles and so forth. It's so handy to create some interesting little things like creases or just variations in a pair of trousers. So we'll do that a little later. But starting to come along, looking not too bad. So I'm going to select. I think I need to move that. Yeah, it's a little bit edgy. Let's grab this. Yeah, that needs to be moved in. Move that in just a little bit, make it a little more round. That's better. And then I'm going to grab this bunch of vertices right here that are all part of those edges that are tucked together here. And I'm going to I just move those in just a little bit together. So it's a little more round there. That's better. Okay, whoops, we got some edges that are coming through. Again, turn off Mesh Smooth or turn it back. Yeah. Let's grab this. We don't want that sticking through, so let's get that out of the way. We don't want this sticking through. That's the problem. See, when I was selecting these guys, I wasn't selecting all of the vertices, and it's difficult to do sometimes. And I'm having trouble just selecting that one. Shouldn't be that difficult to select. All right, let's do it this way. So what I do like that, doesn't want to select it. Interesting. That one's okay. This needs to come down probably in there. Let's take a look inside of here. Yeah. There we go. Now I can select it, move that in a little bit, and then move this back out. Nope, not that one. Move this one back out where it belongs. There we go. Now really what we need to do at this stage, since we can, I'm going to go ahead and turn, I got ignore back facing turned on, so I'm going to go ahead and get my thin selection tool again. I'm going to select all of these vertices right here on the outside. Okay, and I'm going to pull these straight down. Notice what that just did. Did you see how sharp the bottom of the shirt suddenly got just by doing that? And that's what we're after. And we could probably do the same thing with the sleeve at some point, but for right now I think it's okay. Maybe even, you know, what I could do is pull that outside part out, up and out a little bit. But that gives us that, you know, ability to create a sort of a sharp curve. Now we're going to adjust this. We're going to use some bump maps also to create some feeling of like some wrinkles and stuff in the shirt. But so we're not going to get too picky about this stuff right now. All right, so where are we at here? We've been going for a little while, but I think we've made some progress here. So I think this is a good stopping point. We'll move on to doing some more refining in the next video.